all of you joining us here this evening. My name is Emily Tokarski, and I am so pleased to welcome you all to the first ever Idea Box, brought to you by the Heft Technology and Management Program. Before we get started, I just want to offer a few guidelines to help ground this community this evening. First and foremost, we welcome everyone's input and would like to encourage you guys to use your reactions and as well as the chat feature within Zoom. We also expect everyone to respect each other here in this environment, and we ask that if you could change your display name to include your full name as well as your preferred pronouns. We also ask that you turn your video on if you feel comfortable doing so. It gives us a little bit more of a community feel here, as opposed to the gallery of black boxes that we see so often in our Zoom calls these days. We also ask that you commit to learning. We're so lucky to have a community of student experts that we can learn from here. And we ask that you listen to understand and not simply to respond. We truly believe that our differences are our strengths here, and everyone's perspective is valued and embraced. I'd also like to remind you that what is said here stays and what is learned leaves. We really want to cultivate this as a safe space for everybody to exist in, interact within, because we truly believe that we are stronger together, and we are so excited to welcome you guys here into the Idea Box community. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Ian Flueck. He has a fantastic presentation prepared for you all this evening. So I'll stop taking our short time frame here and hand it off to him. Ian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So imagine there's an asteroid hurtling through space, headed on a direct collision course with Earth, our home planet. Scientists around the world identify this threat and notify their governments. There's 48 hours until the expected collision that has the potential to wipe out the human population. Instantly, groups, teams spring into action, collaboration across companies and universities, across language and geographical barriers, ideological barriers. The entire human race working together to identify solutions to this problem. And why not? Without a solution to this problem, surely we are all doomed together to the same fate. One team says we need explosives to blow this asteroid to pieces, millions of pieces scattered throughout space, so they'll burn up on their way into the atmosphere or miss Earth entirely. Another team says we need to attach rockets to the side of the asteroid and boost it so it just misses by Earth on its way past. And a third group says what we really need here is concentrated lasers shooting at this asteroid to vaporize it before it reaches Earth. But whatever solution was identified, the power here, the thing to focus on, is the fact that no matter who you were, no matter where you came from, people were willing to work together to identify a solution to the asteroid problem. I was lucky enough to be introduced to the idea of the asteroid problem by none other than Bill Nye. You may know him as the Science Guy. I was lucky enough to meet him, to shake his hand, to receive an award from him. But the greatest gift I received that night was the story of the asteroid problem. See, for him, it was a story about human ingenuity and engineering. But for me, it was a metaphor for any challenge that we face that requires the collaboration of different groups of people to work together. I've often used it to talk about the challenges posed by global warming and climate change, and more recently, the COVID-19 pandemic. But there's tremendous power in this story. It's the power of connection and collaboration. It's the power of hope and the power of the ingenuity of the human spirit. For a science guy, Bill had a pretty great story, and it's probably why he was able to have his own TV show. So why do we tell stories? Well, there's a rich legacy of human storytelling. It started out in our oral storytelling traditions, early forms of communication, sharing where the animals were that day, what the challenges might be faced, or the weather patterns changing. And this evolved over time. We see examples of storytelling in religion. We see here the Gutenberg Bible and Anubis from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Additionally, stories teach us things. We can learn and generate and build upon the collective knowledge with storytelling, right? Through stories such as Aesop's fables or the Epic of Gilgamesh. So clearly storytelling is an essential part of what it means to be human. And that holds true today. We see New York City, Times Square, advertising. Each one of those ads tells a story. We see Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie talking about the dangers of a single story in her amazing TED Talk that I highly recommend. We see storytelling in cinema, and of course we see storytelling in understanding where we came from, quite literally a story, right? So with that, I'd like to share another story. I've been a musician all my life, and I came across an amazing video from this man, Benjamin Zander. He's the conductor and music director for the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra. And the video is a masterclass in music interpretation. He's working with a young cello student, maybe 16 or 17 years old, playing the Elgar Cello Concerto in E minor. And the student plays beautifully well. The intonation is great. The structure of the piece, well thought out. It's very polished. And he finishes, the audience claps, and Mr. Zander stands up, and you think, what could he possibly say to this student that is going to make him sound any better? Well, what Mr. Zander asks is, do you know the story of Edward Elgar? Right? Famous British composer, but he was a bit of a tormented soul, caught between social classes in English society. So the story goes, this is Elgar's last significant work, by the way, and as the story goes, Elgar says, when I die, if you hear whistling on the Yorkshire moors, that will be me. That will be me. And now all of a sudden, when the cello student returns to the passage where the main theme of the first movement plays, it's not about the music. It's not about the instrument, the cello that he's playing, the bow that he's using. It's about the story of Elgar and his legacy. The melody starts with the accompaniment, and then the solo cello picks it up, and you feel the tragedy, the sadness in Elgar's story. It feels soulful and haunting, and then the orchestra joins back in. And now it's building, it's growing, there's a crescendo. The cello has this amazing run. And now you feel the triumph of Elgar, looking back on his life, reflecting on all the things he's done, all the accomplishments that he's had, all the good moments and the bad. And then it dies back down slowly. The cello plays the melody one last time, and it fades away to nothing. And it's Elgar saying goodbye. And all of that happens within the first 3 minutes of the piece. Now, when the audience, before they were clapping, now they're cheering, they're smiling, people are crying, clearly telling the story of Elgar through this piece of music was so much more impactful. It touched so many more people than when he played it before. And why is this important? Why is storytelling so important? See, this cello student found himself going through the motions, an incredibly talented cello student playing a very beautiful piece. But it was just that. As soon as the story was introduced, he was no longer going through the motions, but he was talking about emotion, the passion of it, the story of it, the sadness of it. Why is this relevant to you? Well, maybe you found yourself going through the motions recently. I know I have. It's been challenging sometimes to find motivation, to find inspiration. And what's helped me is to tell a story, to tell my own story, focus on the things that make me happy, that make me get excited, the things that keep me up late at night and wake me up early in the morning. Or in other words, your superpower. It's really important to identify what your superpowers are. They can be your skills, your passions, your strengths, right? And these are the things that make it so you're not going through the motions anymore. I'll give you my own example. My senior year in high school, preparing for the first concert of the year, I was looking around the green room at my friends, my fellow musicians, the night of the concert. And I watched as people were standing in the corners, furiously practicing the difficult sections. And there was this quiet hum of conversation. No one was brave enough to speak too loud, to be too intrusive into this tense atmosphere. And I picked up on this. I told everyone to set down their instruments and to come join me out in the hallway. We stood in a circle. I spoke to each and every one of them, all 22. I said, Look, we've worked so hard. We've practiced so long. Let the music be. Let the notes be as they are. Let the rhythms be as they are. Instead, let's focus on one another. When we walk up on that stage, let's look each other in the eye and commit to the action, this collective union of creative storytelling that we're going to share together. Let's tell the story of Rakastava, the name of the piece, a love story in 3 movements. Make it a love story. Don't make it a story about you trying to hit all the notes in the right order. Let's give and take. Let's move together. Let's feel together. And while it wasn't our best performance ever, it felt like the best performance. I've had people tell me years later that they still remember that night and how it made them feel. And so my superpower is inspiration, the power to turn to somebody else and to bring them up, to raise them up, to say, hey, look, this is how things can be if we work together, if we grow together, if we learn together. This moment was a turning point in my life. My whole life, I was looking over my shoulder thinking, should I be thinking the way that they're thinking? Should I be acting the way that they're acting? But in this moment, I decided it was time for me to step forward and to say the things that I thought needed to be said and to take the action that I thought needed to be had. And my lovely friends here at university have pushed me to continue this, to continue sharing my inspiration. And they've challenged me to start my own podcast. And I'm planning on following through in 2021. It's very exciting. It lights me up. It keeps me going. So this is what I mean by your superpower, right? Identifying that thing that keeps you going no matter what. And I got there by telling my story. So you will now have the opportunity to practice this, to discover your own superpowers and to tell your own stories. Here's how it's going to work. You will be sent to a breakout room with one other person. They may be someone you know, they may be someone you've never met before. They may be another student, they may be in the T&M program, they may be an administrator or a professor, who knows? But don't worry about the titles, worry about the stories, focus on the stories. Here's what's gonna happen. Whoever's name is first in the alphabet will have 5 minutes to tell a story of something that they've accomplished this year, something that they're proud of, that they've worked on. It can be big or small. And as you tell this story, think about the underlying superpower that led you to this accomplishment, that led you to this achievement. And when you identify your superpower, I would invite you to share it with us. On this Slido, we are going to curate everybody's superpowers together. So you can add your superpower to mine. After those 5 minutes, switch. The other person will have 5 minutes to tell their story, something they're proud of, something that they accomplished. And then the underlying superpower or superpowers that connect to that story, and then share it here. If you finish before the 10 minutes are up, feel free to come back and join us in the main room. We can start discussing all your superpowers, but no rush. Take your time, tell your story, connect with one another, and discover what your superpowers are. Good luck. It is your superpowers, which is great to see. If you didn't have a chance to add your superpower to this list, I would encourage you to do so now, but I think we have most of them. So you can see here that there's so many things that we all bring unique to ourselves, right? Through our own experiences that we've lived, through our own lenses as individuals, we've developed these superpowers to build our superhero, right? Which is really exciting, and it speaks to the power of being yourself and being and building on those differences that we have, right? Learning from others. Okay, it got really big. That's all right. Okay, I have a few closing words that I want to leave you with tonight. So, first of all, if you have a story, if you tell your story, people will listen to you. That's the power of storytelling. So often people ask us, who are you? Or in various forms. And people say, oh, my name's Ian, I'm a junior, studying material science and engineering, have technology and management program, focusing on polymers. And that's all great stuff. But the world doesn't look at you like that. The world doesn't work like that. The world sees you as a collection of stories, a collection of experiences, a collection of superpowers. So find pride and take passion in the things that you create, and the things that make you you. And that's a story worth telling. So I would encourage you to always share your story. The next time someone asks you, who are you? Lead with a story, lead with your superpower, and see how powerful that is. Secondly, welcome everyone to the first ever Idea Box. We are so glad that you could join us tonight. This is an exciting new initiative that we're putting together. And we've identified a few goals, a few missions, right? We believe that our differences are our strengths. We are stronger together, that the students who joined us tonight, you are all experts in your own areas. And so we would encourage you to share your stories in any capacity that you're able to do so, with your friends, with your families, with your clubs here on campus, within the majors that you represent, within the colleges that you represent. Share your story. What's in your box? A special message to my peers in the T&M program. This is your platform. I would encourage you to step forward, to be a leader in this community and in the campus community, and to share your story, and add your story to the growing Idea Box that we have curated here today. And lastly, I leave you all with a brief assignment. Don't worry, it shouldn't be too hard. Over the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday or winter break holiday, I challenge you to tell a story. You'll be with friends and family. Tell a story. Maybe tell a story that you told tonight about your superpower. Maybe you tell the story of what happened tonight. I'd be very honored if you did. And with that, I thank you all very much for coming. I'm going to stick around for as long as necessary to continue the conversation. If anyone wants to ask me anything or discuss anything with me, I'd be more than happy to do so. But it is now 7:30, and if you have somewhere to go, by all means, thank you so very much for coming.
Thank you, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
Hi, Ian. I do have one question.
Of course, of course.
Do we have a planned release date for this podcast? Because I'm kind of looking forward to it.